rich friends, people who make between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, are too rich for him. I guess he wants to make them poor. He's succeeding at that. Yep. 1 in 5 Canadians told Angus Reid that they will be affected, including 1 in 5 of people making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, Mr. Speaker. Another tax targeting the middle class by this promise-breaking Prime Minister. If those Canadians are wrong and they won't be affected, will the Prime Minister announce that he will amend his tax increase law to exclude anybody making less than $100,000 a year?
Our increase to the capital gains inclusion rate will affect people who make more than $250,000 in profits when they sell successful investments within a given year. We feel that those people can make a slight less amount of profits so that we can make sure we're investing in young people who can afford housing, so that we help seniors with the cost of dental care, so we deliver free insulin and free prescription contraceptives across this country. We're asking the wealthiest and the most successful to pay a little bit more so we can help those who need it.
Socialist bafflegab. Not my words. Those are the words of Scott Bryson, the former Liberal president of the Treasury Board, the very person to whom the Prime Minister trusted all of his spending. Add to that Bill Morneau and John Manley, 2 former finance ministers who have now said they are against this tax increase, and David Dodge, a Liberal former governor of the Bank of Canada. Now that all these Liberals say that the Prime Minister is up to socialist bafflegab, will he reverse this job-killing tax on Canadians? So the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland says this Prime Minister's carbon tax will harm working-class people just trying to heat their homes or drive to work. The former Liberal finance minister, which he appointed, says that this latest job-killing tax that he's brought in will drive investment out of the country. And the Liberal Treasury Board president that he appointed accuses the Prime Minister of socialist bafflegab. With Liberals accusing him of socialist bafflegab, will he just admit that he's actually not even a Liberal? He's Canada's first NDP Prime Minister.
We've demonstrated over the past 9 years that investing in the middle class and people working hard to join it can create growth for the country, and that's why we're continuing to step up to put that growth for work by putting more money in the pockets of Canadians, whether it's through a plan to fight climate change that puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country, whether it's by moving forward on asking the wealthiest who are selling off profitable investments to share a little more of those profits with Canadians who need it, by countering the housing crisis, by investing in young people. But once again, Conservatives stand with the wealthiest, we stand with the middle class.
During the housing crisis, he doubled housing costs, helping young people. 76% of them say they can't afford a home after 9 years of this Prime Minister. But it's getting worse. The Prime Minister gave $500 million to the Liberal NDP mayor and council at Toronto City Hall, supposedly to accelerate home building. What is the consequence? Since that money was handed over, Toronto City Hall has increased wait times and costs for building permits by 50%. Why does he keep forcing taxpayers to bloat the gatekeeping bureaucracies instead of doing what we want? Build the homes.
Last week, it was demonstrated that housing starts are up across this country, and that is part of where we have been investing with communities across the country in the Housing Accelerator Fund that is delivering more homes built faster. Indeed, we're going to see close to 4 million new homes in the coming decade because Canadians know that more density, better use of public lands, better protection for renters, better math for home builders to be able to build more affordable homes. These are the things that are going to make a difference in Canadians' lives.
Better math? Well, I think we can all agree this Prime Minister needs better math. But here is the math. The Altus Group says that Canada's development charges are significantly higher, and our wait times for getting building permits are the second slowest in the entire OECD. And what is this Prime Minister doing? Giving $500 million to the City of Toronto, which has just increased its development charges and its permit wait times by 50%. So once again, why does the Prime Minister keep funding the gatekeepers instead of removing them so we can build the homes?
Example of how one makes the math work to build more homes. Last year, we made a decision to take off the GST on purpose-built middle-income apartment buildings, on the kind of apartment buildings we need more of right across the country. Within a few days after having announced that we would no longer be charging the GST on new apartment buildings, thousands of new units were being announced by developers across the country because suddenly they were able to bring projects onto the table that hadn't been on it before. That's how you invest in housing. That's how you deliver for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, permits take 3 times longer to get in Canada than in the U.S. and in the U.K. And in the last 2 years in Toronto, the wait time has gone from 21 months to 32 months, all while the Prime Minister has given that bureaucracy $500 billion to subsidize their building blocking bureaucracy. Why won't he follow my common sense plan to require municipalities permit 15% more housing completions as a condition of getting their federal funds?
Let's be very clear. The Conservative leader has no plan to address the housing crisis. When he was housing minister under the Harper government, he had no plan to address the housing crisis. That government decided to get out of any federal engagement in housing, and we're seeing those consequences even 10 years later. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that his plan to reimpose GST on apartment building construction would slow down apartment building construction. His plan to withdraw funds that are needed for densification and permitting would slow down housing construction. That's not what Canadians need.